Module 4. So we'll start working on that, and you'll want to have it open to type into so that when we're done with this class today, you'll be ready to turn it in. Okay, so first thing for you to do on Pear Deck, please grab that little check mark and move it to how you feel about the music video I just showed you. A smiley face, an face, and a sad face. Okay, let's see what you thought. Okay, good. Oh no, we had somebody who didn't like it. Sorry about that. Little sad face. But it looks like mostly we're on the like face. There's some checks in between. Is that because maybe you feel like you liked it but didn't totally like it? We have a continuum from okay to good. Okay. Okay, good. Well, if you liked it, make sure to go back so you can watch the rest of that video. Once we've watched some other things today too, you'll see that it's this great video because it consolidates a lot of the stuff that we're talking about now in one music video. Okay. All right, so let's talk about what you have already done, hopefully, according to that Module 4 assignment. You have read an article and watched a crash course video, and then after viewing those, you made a decision about whether Genghis Khan was an enlightened, goal-driven leader or a mass, remorseless killer. So answer the question on this slide. Tell me what you think so far, based on what you've seen in those two sources. Which one was he? Let's take a look. Oh, it's kind of half and half, but there's more people on the Pear Deck, so go ahead and make an answer. Remember, guys, there's no right or wrong. This is anonymous, so just take a shot at it and tell us your opinion. And I'll keep asking you the same question, and we'll see if your opinion changes depending on what we learn about Genghis Khan. Okay, seems like I need to let somebody in. Good. Okay, let's go to the next slide. All right, we're going to watch a video about Genghis Khan that's about his whole life and all of his conquests around the world. So for this, I can't show it in Pear Deck, unfortunately. So make sure that you're looking at the Microsoft Teams screen where you can see my screen, what I'm showing you, so that you can watch the video. Also, the video is we had to
what we would call genocide. The books are...
Sorry about that. Okay, we had to cut out quite a bit to make it fit in today and to still make it make sense. So as we watch, keep thinking about that question. So it'll be a little bit jumpy, but keep thinking about that question of what do these things lead to? Is he a remorseless killer or a goal-driven enlightened leader? Okay, and before we start, you need to know, Genghis Khan grew up on the Mongolian steppes within a clan. When he was young, his father was killed by a rival clan, the Tartars, and Genghis and his family were cast out of the tribe. They had to survive in the harsh steppes, with Genghis acting as the head of his family. When he rejoined the clan, he does this by killing his half-brother, and he re-enters Mongol life by making friends with a powerful leader's son, with whom he becomes blood brothers. He then disappears from society for several years, only to return with a new ambitious mission. Okay, so we'll start the video and keep an eye out for what do you think?
The secret history provides no clue to where he went or what he did until around 10 years later, when he suddenly reappears. The Genghis who returns is a man on a mission. His plan? To forge the peoples of the steppes into one great fighting force, with himself at the head of it. It's a massive break with tradition.
No longer does one depend on the clan or the tribe. Tribal loyalties fall away. It becomes a personal loyalty to Genghis Khan himself. It's not who do you, what have you done for me? Have you demonstrated your loyalty to me?
Genghis plans to lead his Mongol army against the tribe who killed his father, the Tartars. It is 5 years before he's sure his troops are ready to take them on. When the day of battle arrives, Genghis's warriors smash the Tartar army. But the defeated Tartars still won't admit that Genghis is now the boss by pledging their loyalty.
The Tartars offer nothing but defiance and rivalry, so Genghis orders the final solution.
The Mongols slaughter every Tartar male they can find, young and old. Genghis sends out a clear message on how he intends to rule. Mess with me, and your history.
Genghis Khan is a ruthlessly efficient leader. He's very bright. He's able to adopt new strategies. We see somebody who's able to lead and become a charismatic, great individual.
His rise to power seems unstoppable. Legends grow, suggesting the Mongols are immortal. You can...
Okay, his blood brother that we mentioned earlier and Genghis go into battle against each other. Even though his blood brother has a bigger army, Genghis has a plan.
The night before the battle, Genghis figures out a brilliant way of making his army seem stronger. Normally, each soldier would have one fire. But Genghis orders every single man to light 5 fires. In the dark, it looks like he has a huge army, 5 times its real size. Many of Jamuka's men quit, even before the fighting starts. Genghis's ruse has helped even the score, and the battle is a stunning victory. The battle ends 4 years of bloody civil war. Genghis has crushed every opponent. The tribes gather at Mongolia's sacred Blue Lake to acknowledge him as supreme warlord.
This is the heart of Genghis's homeland. It's also the heart of a revolution. Genghis had destroyed his enemies, united his allies, created a nation. This was quite extraordinary because it was the first time this had ever happened in Mongol history, the unity of all the tribes. And it was here that his people acknowledged him as supreme leader.
Genghis Khan has created a new nation, Mongolia.
In 1206, he united his clans, founded his nation, and was granted a unique title. We don't really know what it meant, because it fell out of use very soon afterwards. But it probably meant the most powerful king, Genghis Khan.
Genghis Khan has united the tribes of the steppes into a single warrior nation. To fulfill his vision of world conquest, he will need to invade the great Islamic kingdom of Central Asia, ruled by Shah Muhammad II. For once, Genghis does not unleash his horde. He sends merchants and spies. But he's met with a short and bloody response. The Shah summons the Mongol envoys and executes them. Big mistake. Very big mistake. Genghis is furious. He unleashes the Mongol horde. The Shah's armies flee to the fortified cities, thinking their high walls and deep moats will protect them.
Imagine the problem, mounted archers up against walls 35, 40 feet high. How on earth are they going to get inside them?
Genghis has taken thousands of the Shah's people prisoner and has a typically brutal solution. He throws them into the moat to make a human bridge. To the horror of the Shah's people, thousands more prisoners are used as a human shield by the advancing Mongols.
The people in the cities would want to give up rather than kill their own people.
They are human shields.
This is completely brutal even by modern standards, but he is aiming at world domination, and it doesn't matter how many people die in the process.
The Mongols didn't just scare the city into submission. They smashed their way in. The historian Juvayni says the Mongols then marched the entire population of Merv into the desert and killed them. He says each warrior slaughters 300 people.
Genghis Khan was a master of terror tactics. He knew exactly how to strike terror into the hearts of his enemies, and he used that tactic throughout his life.
The Mongols have torn across Asia, leaving a trail of bodies. Persian accounts say they slaughter 3 million. The victories bring more and more female captives to feed Genghis's insatiable sexual appetite. And things are about to get worse when Genghis Khan wipes out a whole civilization. By 1226, Genghis Khan has spent 20 brutal years running one of the greatest land grabs in history. He is engaged in 5 bloody campaigns of expansion to create an empire that covers around 8 million square miles. More than 30 million people live under his rule. It's quite an achievement for a boy from the backwoods. Eventually, the Mongol Empire will stretch from the Pacific to Europe.
Genghis's achievement is really nothing short of extraordinary. If we make a parallel with the United States,
He gives the Mongols a language, laws, and literacy.
He created a unified nation that was to be one of laws, one of literacy, one of centralized administration, and one, in the end, of expansion.
He establishes governments in the conquered lands, building on what he's achieved in Mongolia. He is creating a legacy.
Conquest is the easy part. Ruling is very difficult. And this is what makes Genghis Khan such an interesting figure. Not only does he conquer, he then uses his creative abilities to rule this vast empire. Genghis Khan is motivated by 2 major factors. The first, of course, is his vision, his desire to conquer the world and create a new society. The second, underlying it, is that of loyalty. Scores must be settled, slights must not be tolerated.
And it doesn't matter to him how old these slights are. Genghis Khan has been harboring a 7-year grudge against a powerful civilization in northern China, the Tanguts.
The Tanguts were a people of great culture. When anybody living in New York or Chicago today would recognize them as people of great sophistication. They had
In 1209, Genghis came to a deal with the Tanguts. He'd leave them in peace, and in return, they would supply warriors when he asked. But when that request came 10 years later, the Tanguts said no. They broke an oath of loyalty and trust. The ultimate sin to Genghis.
The Tanguts made a huge mistake when they refused to send troops to Genghis Khan. He was going to come back, and he was going to come back with a vengeance.
The Tanguts have every reason to feel secure. They are a regional superpower with a population of several million. Their territory is defended by the vast expanse of the Gobi Desert and a great barrier of mountains across northern China. But Genghis leads the Mongols through these obstacles, and now his horrifying horde reveals its devastating ability as an army of conquest. It's swift.
It moved.
Age seems no barrier in this last great campaign. Genghis Khan is still a driven man.
In this campaign, we see his defining characteristics, his drive, his leadership, his ambition to succeed, even though it may mean the slaughter of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of people. This is what he lives for. He comes alive psychologically during this campaign.
He sweeps through China, driving the Tanguts into their cities.
I can't help feeling the Tanguts were really stupid. They must have known by now what the Mongol army could do to cities. They just make themselves a huge target to an army that's already proven that it can break down any city wall it likes.
He rolls out his devastating trebuchets. But now, they're not just throwing rocks.
He won!
Genghis Khan has proved a rapid learner when confronted with new technology of war. From the Chinese themselves, he has picked up a new weapon, the firebomb. Dozens of the mighty trebuchets bombard the Tangut cities. The Tanguts have no choice. They surrender. Their king goes to Genghis to beg for mercy. But he's kept waiting because Genghis Khan is dying. Genghis Khan dies in 1227. Like much of his life, his death has terrible consequences. His final deathbed order is preserved in the secret history. It's chilling. Make the Tanguts vanish. The women, children, and grandchildren. His loyal army obeys. Genghis Khan dies in an ocean of Tangut blood. No one knows how many are killed, but a whole culture dies.
The books are destroyed, the priesthood destroyed, and the people killed. This is in effect what we would call genocide.
A civilization is wiped from the face of the earth. All that's left today are a few traces of their culture and the ruins of the grand imperial tombs.
Okay, so there's our video. Now, guys, please go back to your Pear Deck tab, and after watching that video, you can answer the question again: remorseless killer or enlightened goal-driven leader? And there are a couple of people that came in while we were watching the video. Please go to joinpd.com and enter this code so you can take part in this as well. And you should also have the module for Trial of Genghis Khan assignment open so you can fill in the answers as we go together. Okay, all right, it looks like there's a little bit of a mix, but Remorseless Killer is winning out after that video. But I'm glad that we're seeing both sides of it. Remember, guys, there's no right or wrong answer. He did some good things, he did some really awful things. We have to decide which one weighs more heavily from each source. Okay, so let's look at the first quote, and this is number 3 from your worksheet. Okay, this is a quote from Genghis Khan himself. The greatest happiness is to vanquish your enemies, to chase them before you, to rob them of their wealth, and to see those dear to them bathed in tears, to clasp to your bosom their wives and daughters. And up in the top, vanquish means to conquer or to win over your enemies. So what do we think? Remorseless or goal-driven, enlightened? Okay. Good. Keep voting, guys. Keep voting. Looks like this one we think he's a remorseless leader. And then on the next slide, I had a video for you guys, but it wasn't working last class, so I think we might have to skip that one. But good. Okay, I'm getting more votes in. Looks like we're in agreement. This one makes him a mass remorseless killer. Okay, that one's pretty unanimous. Let's see if this will play. Nope. Okay, so unfortunately, there's a 1982 movie called Conan the Barbarian with Arnold Schwarzenegger that uses that quote in the movie. So hopefully, maybe I can replace it with something else. You guys can see it in the slides when I post them. Okay, the next quote, and I'm sorry, I'm noticing that the numbers on these are incorrect. So just be following through on your worksheet. This one, I guess, would be number 4. Lost track. Okay. The Mongols themselves produced little of value for distant markets, nor were they active traders. Nonetheless, they consistently promoted international commerce, largely so that they could tax it and thus extract wealth from more developed civilizations. The Mongols also provided financial backing for caravans, introduced standardized weights and measures, and gave tax breaks to merchants. In providing a relatively secure environment for merchants making the long and arduous journey across Central Asia between Europe and China, the Mongol Empire brought the two ends of the Eurasian world into closer contact than ever before, and launched a new phase in the history of the Silk Roads. Okay, what do we think of that one? What does that say about Genghis Khan? half of people have answered. Okay. All right, good. So far, most people are agreeing that he is an enlightened, goal-driven leader because of this. Okay. So yeah, maybe just based on just this quote. Yeah, he's ruthless, but once he rules, he's good at ruling, perhaps. Okay. All right, let's go to the next one. And remember, guys, as we go through these, to be filling them in on your worksheet. In the spring of 1221, the people of Nishapur, a city in Persia, saw that the matter was serious, and although they had 3,000 crossbows in action on the wall and had set up 300 mangonels and ballistas, those are like shooting weapons, and laid in a correspondent quantity of missiles and naphtha, their feet were loosened and they lost heart. By the Saturday night, all the walls were covered with Mongols. The Mongols now descended from the walls and began to slay and plunder. They then drove all the survivors, men and women, out onto the plain, and it was commanded that the town should be laid waste in such a manner that the site could be plowed upon, and that not even cats and dogs should be left alive. They severed the heads of the slain from their bodies and heaped them up in piles, keeping those of the men separate from those of the women and children. Okay. Right, and we should always look at the notes and the source as well. This one is Juvayni, a Persian chronicler who was in the employ of the Mongol Il Khan of Persia, who served under the Mongols as the governor of Baghdad. He wrote this account about 40 years after the destruction of Nishapur. So he wasn't there to see it. This is a report. Okay, what do we think? Okay, not so many votes yet, but mostly it looks like mass remorseless killer. Yeah, it's pretty rough. That is a lot of people they killed. And they didn't just kill them, they completely destroyed the entire town, everything. Okay, let's continue. All right. When they are in battle, if 1 or 2 or 3 or even more out of a group of 10 run away, all are put to death. And if a whole group of 10 flees, the rest of the group of 100 are all put to death, if they do not flee too. In a word, unless they retreat in a body, all who take flight are put to death. Likewise, if 1 or 2 or more go forward boldly to the fight, then the rest of the 10 are put to death, if they do not follow. And if 1 or more of the 10 are captured, their companions are put to death if they do not rescue them. Okay. And this is from John of Plano Carpini, was a Franciscan emissary of Pope Innocent IV and traveled to Karakorum between 1245 and 1247. It's believed that he was the first European to visit the Mongols in their homeland. So even before Marco Polo. Oops, sorry, I forgot to look at our answers. Okay, from this one, yeah, we think he's a mass remorseless killer again. Okay, but a couple of votes for enlightened, goal-driven leader, and I like that because we do see that there's a lot of death. He was killing a lot of people, but this is maybe an interesting way to keep your troops working together. So they have to work as a team, because if they don't work as a team, then they all die. You know, it's not about the individuals, it's about the entire group. So you can decide if you think that's a good thing or a bad thing. Okay. All right, remember to be filling these in on your worksheet. And let's go to the next one. Okay, this one is a chart, so let's look at this together. All right, there's the year, the place. In the video that we watched, they talked about Merv, okay, where a lot of people were killed. And then these are the reported deaths, and it tells us the source of this information, but here's the reported deaths. 30,000, 30,000, 700,000, 1,747,000, 1,600,000, few survivors, no survivors, 800,000 to 2 million. Okay. Right, this note tells us these casualty figures are found in George Marshall's Storm from the East. Despite very probable exaggeration, there is agreement among chroniclers of the time and historians of today that the number of deaths at Nishapur was staggering. So that there's probably some exaggeration here. We don't really know the real numbers. No one was chronicling it like a census today. But there is some agreement on Nishapur, the one that says 1,747,000. It's a lot of deaths. Okay, let's see what you think. Okay. All right, mostly votes for mass remorseless killer for this one. Yeah, because that's a lot of people dead. Okay. All right, let me give you just a moment before I read this one to go ahead and make sure you're caught up on your worksheet. Okay, all right, and here's the next one. Mongol commerce in China and Persia. The Mongols conquered nearly all of Asia and achieved what all inner Asian steppe empires had dreamed of, control of the continental caravan routes from China to Persia. The enormous destructive cost of the Pax Mongolica, the Mongolian peace, cannot be denied. But the Mongol Empire made significant contributions to the political institutions, economic development, and cultural diversity of many lands. No history of the Mongol Empire, which dwells only on Mongol destruction, can be satisfactory. In both China and Persia, the Mongols had taken up residence among their new subjects, garrisoning cities and gradually blending to a degree with the local societies. As a result, their economic interests coincided with those of the native peoples, and the Mongols, after the destruction of the initial conquest, promoted diversified economic development. Another bullet point. The Mongol Yuan emperors built canals to improve transportation and communication. In China, agriculture and craft production continued unabated. And unabated means that it wasn't stopped. It continued in a healthy way. Okay. Okay, all right. Yeah, some votes coming in. I think this sounds pretty enlightened. It tells us that yeah, they were ruthless, crazy ruthless, killed a lot of people, but once they were in there, once they were ruling, they were very good rulers and really fostered a very healthy society. Okay. Right, but still based on all the death, we have to remember, right? Okay, so make sure you filled that one in on your worksheet. Okay, let's go to the next one. We just have two more. The evidence of the chroniclers and the travelers enables us to identify the striking changes wrought on Mongol morality by Genghis Khan legislation. Giovanni comments that Genghis Khan rooted out adultery and theft. War, strife, bodily harm, or murder do not exist. Robbers and thieves on a grand scale are not to be found among them, remarks Plano Carpini. And for this reason, their houses and the carts in which they store their wealth have neither locks nor bolts. Johnny writes that no one except the owner would dare pick up even a whip lying on the ground. Ibn Battuta, describing how during travels in Iraq, 2 horses went astray during the night, reports that although the travelers left the country soon afterwards, the horses were brought to them on their journey 20 days later. He also comments that although there were many pack animals in the Kipchak area, these could be left unattended because of the severity of Mongol laws against theft. Okay, let's see your responses to this one. Okay. All right, we're getting mostly enlightened, goal-driven leader this time. Okay, yeah, another one that their laws were so crazy strict that no one dared break them, so it made it safe for everyone. You can decide if those means justify the ends, if that's a good reason to be so harsh. Okay, good. So some good evidence there. Okay, last one, and I want to walk through this together. It's a chart with some percentages of deaths in the Mongol Empire and in other big events in history. So if we look at the left side, has the percentage of the world population that was killed. Genghis Khan from 1206 to 1227, so 21 years of his reign, 11.1% of the world population was killed. That's kind of huge. That's like really huge, because if you compare it to other major events, let's look at the Second World War, when we know a lot of people were killed. That was only 2.6% of the world's population. Also, we can look at deaths per year in the millions. During the Second World War, it was 9.4 million deaths per year. And for First World War III, Genghis Khan, 1.8 million deaths per year. Okay, that's pretty crazy. So go ahead and make your votes on that one. Right, we're getting some mass remorseless killer there. Yeah, because that one's just numbers, right? We don't know anything else about the reasons or the effects of it. We just know that a lot of people died. So that definitely makes it look like mass remorseless killer. Okay, all right, let's wrap things up. Go ahead and hopefully you're keeping up with your worksheet as well. And now just take your little dot on your Pear Deck screen and say, what's your final judgment? What are you thinking? Is he an enlightened, goal-driven leader, or was he a mass remorseless killer? We saw that he did some good things, but are those good enough to then balance the huge death rate and body count? There we go, color. Okay. All right, good. Looks like a few people are sort of in between, or thinking that he was an enlightened, goal-driven leader. But in this class, most people are thinking he was a mass remorseless killer. And remember, again, there's no right answer. You have evidence of both, and you have to decide which lays more heavily for you, and decide your final answer. Okay. Right. So that is all for today, guys. You can leave me a comment in the chat about how you're doing and on how these kind of assignments are working for you, and if you have any questions. But otherwise, we are done. But please wrap up that assignment and turn it in to me so that you're done and you can just go off to a happy weekend. And I will see you guys next week. Oh, and just a reminder that I will post this video and the slide deck so that you can come back and look at these resources if you want, and that video that I posted. Oh, you can't mute. Sorry, you can't share in the chat. Okay, I'm trying to open the chat. If you have any questions for me, sorry, guys. Okay, now you should be able to chat if you need to. Otherwise, guys, have a great weekend. And I'll see you next week. Thank you, Daniel. Have a good weekend.